Hello guys and welcome to TFT Worlds, Day 2, Game number 3. Enjoy.
Two North American superstars in the top 8. This game, we are going to see that midfield close up and get ever closer to our Day 3 contenders.
All right, so out onto the field again. So little room to go. This will be one game short of the halfway point today, after which we will have a pretty solid idea of what our top 8 is going to look like, bar some absolute travesties of game. Again for Cambiz, along with Enzo carrying the hopes of Amir, for which this tournament has not been kind.
No, it's been really rough out here for me, of course, Hayden. It's having a really rough day number 1, continuing it into day 2, alongside our other representatives in Kerfuzzled and Ging. So Cambiz really on that cusp of making it into that top 8, being our regional champion, one of the players we expected to do the absolute best in this competition.
Yeah, we haven't been able to see much of Cambiz on the mainstream, but it does look like some of his games are going awkwardly. He's been having a lot of HP, and when I was watching off stream, it seemed like he unfortunately wasn't able to stabilize. And that stage 5 seems to be where a lot of these players need to make sure they have strong compositions online, because yes, you can do well stage 2 and stage 3, maybe even stage 4, but these players, they don't build bad boards coming in stage 5, so you have to be prepared. Otherwise, you're going to free fall in the standings like Cambiz did that previous game.
Well, for Cambiz, this starts looking pretty decent. We've got the beginnings of something a little Lulu flavored, and we've got AP items on the bench as well. We'll see what this first augment ends up being, but a strong start for Cambiz will at least secure a relatively strong finish as well.
And a lot of his items tend to lean more to the AD, but we'll see if that augment can change anything, as he does get another sword to go with those 2 rods.
Here we go, first augments off the bat. The Prankster crest would be interesting, but it's never going to be picked up. And we see a couple of interesting options. I'm seeing crests across the board, including Renegades, but also not opting towards directional augments for most of our players.
There's mascots in there and an Anima squad crest option for Shimmerpen down the bottom left-hand corner, along with a Mecha Prime crest if you're feeling particularly spicy. We'll see how much our players are willing to commit for direction early.
The only thing that was pretty interesting would be whether or not some of these players are choosing to commit early or not. And you can see Shimapen is choosing to do that with an Anima Squad emblem. The problem with Shimapen's spot for Anima is that he doesn't have any 2-star units. The advantage of using an Anima Squad crest in particular is you get to put the emblem on the 2-star unit, right? A lot of times you have like a 2-star Renekton, but it's like you don't want Renekton to steal the kills. That's going to be pretty awkward for Shimapen, so I wonder how that's going to pan out for him.
We've had a bit of a change up here for Cambiz. It looked like they were heading towards the Hearts, but he's instead decided to slam the Rabadons straight away. A quick draw and brawler, a solid early board. See how this one ends up developing.
Jukyu has Underground opening with Trade Sector, but he also is holding Gadgetines on his bench, and he has all 4 of them. He's got Lulu, Annie, Poppy, and Gnar, and he has really good Gnar items. He has a sword, a vest, and a bow, which can make that Titan's Resolve, and he can go for Bloodthirster. That combination is still the 2 best items you can play for Gnar, but at the same time, Gadgetine's like falling out of favor, so Jukyu would be doing something once again off meta, which is what he played to success in the North American Regionals.
Well, no, we've been talking about how one of the things that's hard for us to see with our endgame compositions is whether people put in the underground part before bringing their main composition, how much that helps boost them towards the late game and push their comps further than we'd expect.
We've seen to be incredibly successful throughout the days. Of course, yesterday, I'm going to keep talking about this till I go blue in the face, but that Flancy turnaround with the 5 cash out into the triple radiant, we've seen many of our players use that as a slingshot into the late game. So looking forward to seeing if Jukyu opts for the same strategy.
Well, Jukyu has to figure out if he wants to make gold, because all these Gadgetines plus the Lee Sin will equal up to that 10 gold threshold. So does he want to lose streak and stay open and play whatever he wants, or does he really want to play this Gadgetine line and settle for like a 1 or 2 cash out? I think that's the weakest version to play Underground, as Lilua even confirmed that. You don't really want to go for like the low cash outs, not that high power.
He's taking big losses.
Is not. He's actually committing to holding these units. I know a lot of people would sell to 10.
Yeah, I mean,
it's a really
it does feel like a big risk. As you say, the losses are substantial. So he's checking in with Jan there. He's got a very solid build early on. We've seen several players who have been playing strong from the beginning. So much riskier to allow yourself to get hit in the face repeatedly in the early game.
But this is what made Jukyu successful, as he hits a Lee Sin too. He can actually choose to make that and help supplant his front line. Jukyu is a player that is very wide. If you remember the Fates Championship set 4 in TFT, there's a player Ram Ramkev, who also loves to play super wide. Juku reminds me a lot of that. In the North America Regionals, out of the 18 games, he played 14 different compositions and flexed all around his augments and changed game plans. Played from win streak, played from lose streak, played from mid-roll. He's a very flexible player, sometimes a little bit too flexible. That gets into his head at times.
And of course, I wondered if we were going to be seeing Ramkev Delicious Milk kind of being brought up at some point during this. Currently, the peak players for NA historically. We do seem to be in a tournament where perhaps that record will be broken.
And checking back in on here in Shimapen, we mentioned earlier on the difficulties of starting with that Anima Crest. Seems like he settled it a little bit, finding that 2-star Kale, so at least getting some stacks. But the difficulty here is, now that he started taking losses, those stacks are going to slow down, and I'm worried about that mid lane.
Yeah, and Shimapen unfortunately leveled to 5, going up against Xi'an, who's leveled at 5. So that's a really tough loss to swallow, because he was hoping that 5 Anima squad would be a significant spike, but he lost not just by a little, he lost by a lot. So that's not exactly exuding a lot of confidence from Shimapen's board.
You see Cambiz there parking the spatula for a little while. I wonder if we might be seeing it past the cross, because certainly would have been great for Shimapen, but for Cambiz, apparently he's got something specific in mind, perhaps something Infiniteam.
Yeah, Infinity Nova is really strong. We don't know where the portals are, though, do we?
No, we haven't seen it just yet, and that's going to change how you're going to want to play the composition. Of course, if you've got that frontline portal, we've seen Rammus 3-star be very successful with it alongside the classic Garen.
But is it going to be Infinity Emblem with this death cap? It makes me think that is not going to be the case. Instead, he wants to play a more EP-centric composition. Infinity could theoretically play like death cap on Twisted Fate, but it's not particularly very strong, in my opinion, to make Twisted Fate the primary carry.
I mean, we have got the Anvil as well to give a few more options. Just a quick word about our augments on the side. We can see several players go for the second win, as it will be Infiniteam duplicating up their Ezreal. This is unusual. Of course, we see Sure Shot being the most common way to take this. I mean, the way Cambiz is going, is this the right way to go?
I mean, it could be a nod to the fact that Cambiz wants to preserve HP, right? Cambiz is the underground master from France. This guy loves to play the underground and go for big cash out. So maybe his logic is that I'm going to try to use this to preserve HP and then use the items that I'm likely to get to kind of make up for all that lack of AD, and maybe play a hybrid composition with 3, 5, maybe 7 Infiniteam. Kind of depends. The corner hex is always a little bit dodgy because that makes you very vulnerable to things like if someone takes a hook off an Ornn Anvil.
Well, the key, of course, to Underground, Dan, is actually finding the Underground. So Cambiz kind of falling at the first hurdle so far, but you're absolutely right that that's the angle he really prefers. So we see Jukyu. Not yet.
There's some Underground here. There's some Underground here.
I see the underground now.
All right,
there we go.
You're just
easy peasy.
All right, now my analysis is correct.
You're just seeing too far into the future. It's okay. Happens to the best of the precognizance. But Jukyu as well, we were pointing out earlier on, is going for a similar strategy. So both of the bottom of the board going for that underground cash out to try and get their economy stapled up.
We check in with Jin again from China. Note that nobody in the lobby is undefeated at this point. Everyone's at least taken a small hit for bringing out the early power for the Chinese player. Has allowed him to hand out some pretty heavy losses. And for Cambiz, with this board being as strong as it is, at least he'll take a softer loss than he could otherwise.
Do you think this is too late for Underground? We've seen a late attempt from Lilo last game, and that resulted in a bot 2 finish. This feels similar, although it is earlier, but it's not that much earlier.
The second lock has always been so depressing. We've seen a couple of players opt for it and be like, I got a Bloodthirster! Woo! Right. And I don't think that's going to be enough here for Cambiz. The way he wins with Underground is he goes incredibly deep into it, down to those mid-20s, sometimes even high teens health total. And I think you're right. From here, it may be too little too late.
Checking in on our gold across the board at the end of stage 2. We can see there's actually quite a big gold disparity between some of our players. The top, of course, looking pretty good. Michael as well. Shimapen spending a lot of the gold to put together an early win streak. But our bottom 4 players right now, with the exception of 9, all looking a little cash poor.
Yeah, and I think it's worth pointing out that there's only one player who got the absolute full streak, and that is Jukyu down there at the bottom with that Underground. So his economy is going to be in a pretty decent spot, even though his gold is still below 30.
Taking a look at Michael's spot, has 2 defensive items. You can actually go for both the Bramble Vest and the Redemption, or you can go for Sunfire and Vow, which is kind of a a weirder combination. The only thing is that he's playing makeshift armor, so building frontline items feels a lot worse because you feel like you can capitalize on the not having to need to slam those frontline items. So we'll see what Michael ends up choosing to do. In the meantime, that's a Lulu 3.
We were wondering where she had gone. We were looking for her game after game. Players had seemed to have abandoned her, but Nine still on her side, picking up that Lulu with a jeweled gauntlet and just a single sad open tier.
Yeah, I mean, we have seen players going for the Shojin before rather than the preferred blue buff for maximum firepower. But for now, Nine seems happy enough. Not quite at the bottom, has a little loss streak going and not enough gold to really be super comfortable. Ideally looking to eliminate at least a couple of units before the loss.
Yeah, this is a really difficult spot here for Nine because he has to hope that he hits the right augment, and that could be the 2-cost hero augment, but he can definitely miss on that front. He also has to make sure that he gets the really good items, and he's pretty far away from it outside the blue buff, and he wants to eventually turn this sword into a gunblade. So we'll see what ends up happening because this 3-2 augment is going to tell us a lot about a player like Nine and how the rest of his game is going to shape.
Augments coming out for all 8 of our players.
Ooh. Another gold tier augment. Now for someone like Xian, who we just look at his spot, he's streaking a lot. He's looking for something to continue to keep that momentum. Scope Weapons appears for him. I wonder if that's what he's considering, because Scope Weapons is very effective, as we just previously saw with Setsuko's game.
We're wondering about Nine as well. You were saying, you know, the augment is going to make or break this composition. He was able to find featherweights too. So not exactly best in slot compared to something like Axiomark, but is going to get that Lulu firing away much more frequently.
Well, I mean, it's something we would encourage more towards the Shojin line, having the extra attack speed to get a few more casts off. But for Duke Yu, currently at the bottom, along with Camis, they're both in the 60s. Both of them have taken augments more of the defensive flavor.
Yeah, Juki really thinking about what he wants to take here. If he wants the best item to potentially slam right now, it might be Shiv. But I think at the same time, he's thinking about what he wants to build moving forward. Or did he already take it? And this is a graphical little misstep there. I can't really tell. But either way, Juki looks like he's committing to trying to play underground reroll from this spot. And so missing that 3-2 hero augment, I wonder if he is really sad about that or he's okay with it.
Well, at least in EMEA, we've seen it be very successful even without the hero augment, but the key is that underground cash out. Luckily, Jukyu has been building towards it all game, but at this point, that is going to be the make or break, whether it's bot or top 4.
Yeah, holding off on slamming in the ice of the last second. There's definitely a lot of thinking going on.
Great loss.
Jukyu here.
Perfect loss. 10 out of 10.
I mean, Jukyu's certainly in a powerful position in the lobby. You can see 38 points coming in. Has a chance for a little bit of gold and a tier. I mean, still got a lot of HP in the bank, might not want to take it.
Yeah, it does give him enough gold to potentially make the next break point and thresh. So he goes from 27 to 40 if he sells like the Sona or the Lee Sin. So that's actually pretty tempting. And so I think this is specifically a nod to the fact that he wants to Shiv, and he can also capitalize on the gold. So yeah, I can see it. I do think that's a little bit of the more veg side of things, but Jukyu has to be evaluating every heist. It's not just automatically continue the heist there.
Concerning for the top end, potentially, but we see already a Mordekaiser from Michael. I guess it is just that easy.
Wow! I mean, not 2 more Kaisers as of yet, but perhaps it will be down the line. Up against Xian, who has got a really interesting board put together of just good stuff, but just good stuff is not good enough to get away with against Michael's 5 laser core 4 brawler board.
This is such an incredible spot for Michael because now he has so much DPS, and the most important thing about laser core is if you can skip level 7. A lot of people feel like stage 3 and the beginning of stage 4 is the entire finesse of laser core because you have to evaluate how much gold you want to roll to stabilize to hit things like maybe that Warwick and the 4 brawler, but you also have to save enough gold to go to 8 to hit Mordekaiser. He can skip all of that and go straight to 8.
I'm looking at Shimapen here, who has found kind of exactly what he's looking for off this carousel. Ignoring the components, he's found a misfortune, and that should allow him to get to that 7 Anima squad and hopefully give that board the power he has been so desperately looking for.
I know Misfortune has been a controversial figure in the tournament, attracting a lot of ire of people. I mean, for you guys, from what you've seen so far, has any opinion changed on Misfortune, particularly in this context of Anima Squad?
It's not really controversial for me. I just think Misfortune is on the weak side right now, currently. There has to be a bottom, a person on the bottom. There has to be a region ranked last, right? In this case, the worst 4-cost unit to carry right now is Misfortune. That doesn't mean that she's unplayable. It just means that a lot has to go right. I don't think this is entirely the spot where you will see Misfortune pop off, but he has some of the components, right? He has the Anima emblem, he has that early Misfortune, he has that Monozane. Maybe, but I feel like you need a little bit extra juice to get it there.
One thing I do worry for Shimmer Pen's board is, well, we've got the Manzane for the second cast. The first cast is not coming out at any great speed, so we have to turn the fight early.
His front line isn't exactly substantial at the moment. This Riven is doing a lot in the back end of stage 3, but as that front line starts to get outscaled by the back line, you're going to see exactly this happen every fight. Misfortune just cannot get the ults out fast enough to eliminate the back line.
Kind of an interesting call here to not pick up that Kai'Sa. Kai'Sa feels like it's a really easy tie with Star Guardian and the Quick Draw, and 2 Quick Draw is some of the biggest DPS jump that you can get for Misfortune outside of straight up just giving her like Radiant items. So I think that's a really interesting pass in my opinion. I don't think units like Neela are ultimately super important.
So as we check back in with 9 again with the featherweights from before, did find that blue buff for Lulu to let her fully online, and does have a good amount of gold in the bag. So it doesn't necessarily have to stay here to look for the Pantheon and the upgrades, but looks like will do so up against Shimmer Pen. And we'll see if this Misfortune can get the work done here.
Oh my god, Lulu's just ready here to snipe immediately, and Riven needs the support. He needs that the Vi and the Neela to stall as much time as possible. And now you can kind of see the fragility of this Anima squad board. This Misfortune not able to actually do anything. She just fed mana to the Lulu. That's not what you're looking for.
That is absolutely brutal. And it was like we were saying before, if that front line can't hold up against the back line of the enemy team, you're just going to collapse like a flan in a cupboard. But looking at the bottom of the table, we've got 2 players, our underground players we highlighted earlier, sitting at that 20-30 HP range. They're going to have to cash out in the next couple of rounds.
You look at those gold totals, though. Our bottom 4 players, we're seeing a lot of 50s. In fact, our bottom 5 players, loads of money in the
The
bank.
whole board at this point, except for Replay and CanBiz, are up in the 50s.
Replay is very poor, which is actually quite unusual for him. He's been trying to adjust his tempo a little bit more in the tournament by rolling aggressively at the end of stage 3 to try to maintain tempo and streak, but it looks like he was not rewarded for it. And on the flip side, how are players like Juki and CanBiz going to pull themselves out of their deficit? This is a really important phase of the game, and also for players like 9, are we going to get another hero augment, or are we going to get triple gold, no hero augments, and an opportunity to get things like Axiom Arc?
Yeah, I'm sure 9 would love to have an easy way to throw in one of the units that are otherwise very inaccessible at level 5. But we're seeing from our economy reader at the right-hand side of the screen, we said we had 50 gold across the board before. That is no longer the case. The players are plowing money into their compositions.
9 here just finding the single upgrade, but it doesn't look like it's going to be a problem running into a very sad-looking Ezreal board game.
Yeah, it's only 3 Ezreals, 6 Vis. Oh, there's an Ezreal tucked behind the Kai'Sa.
Is he even on Underground anymore?
I don't.
It doesn't look like.
Actually, it is. He has Vi and he has a.
Okay,
persona.
all right.
But it's looking real dicey right now here for Jukyu. If he's able to get this minimal loss, which looks like it's going to happen, I don't think he's going to kill this Lulu 3. Lose by 1 unit is not bad.
Yeah. It was certainly looking a lot worse than that to start with, but of course, when it comes to the end of the round, especially with the Hextech Gunblade, that Lulu is ridiculously hard, as we will get the 4-4-5. That's a lot of power coming into the comps right now.
Oh, it's so hard for some players who are really far behind. I wonder if that's good for CanBiz, Jukyu. And that is a Mordekaiser 2 for Michael, because he's able to get that 5 cost. Michael is looking like he is charging for that final lobby spot.
Huge upgrade for him, the solo queue hero, the Setsuko of Latam, coming in with a massive board in stage 4-2.
Oh, I get it now. He's a Setsuko of Latam because he just hits Mordekaiser in stage 3 into Mordekaiser 2 at 4-2. Ah, I get it. Michael in shopping.
It's like poetry. It rhymes. But for Shimmer Pen, there is going to be
George.
a nice little present dropping in, a second Anima Squad emblem. This is surely going to be a huge step up in power.
It's a big step up in power, but he's still playing MF1 while people have things like Mordekaiser 2. Thankfully, he's going against Replay, who only has Gen 1.
That Bunny Mercenary will help him out quite a bit. He still doesn't have the quick draw you were mentioning earlier, Dan, which I think would do a ton to bolster his damage. But looking across the other board, something that I was interested in, CanBiz, our underground player we were pointing out earlier, has gone for accelerated mentorship.
Look, real quick,
There's
I'm
the
going to
gold.
answer that, but look how much gold he's picked up. He jumped to 4 interest. Replay has Gold Collector, and he has Wrath, or a Rule of 4, so now he's using that to try and get his economy back online, so expect replay to potentially roll for Gen 3, and I don't think anyone's contesting Riftwalkers this lobby.
Well, for GQ, good news has arrived, finally managing to hit that Vi 3. It's not a relentless Vi, as we're so fond of seeing, but she's still pretty strong. Just the one item so far, and the corruption sharing across stacks to make sure that Ezreal, even at 2-star, should be hitting pretty hard.
Yeah, this is so tough, and the difficult thing too is that some matchups here, he has to make sure that Vi with just the stun plate is good enough to survive some of the damage.
It's going to look really rough here. The absolute corruption going to help this Ezreal out a little bit, but just a 2-star against Shen's board. Easy being green, and Nico proving just that. The Ezreal will fire away as best it can, finally tears through most of the front line, but now it looks like Ezreal versus the world. No more ults and no more health for Jukyu.
Oh, and Jukyu just kind of didn't get anything online, didn't hit the Ezreal fast enough, and the pressure coming in from other people, especially when people have, like Michael has that early 5 laser core, it's just so much damage. And this is, I think, as we take a little pause here, I think this is the crux of why China is struggling a lot, because this is a composition that you'll see China play a lot. They love underground Ezreal, they love playing loose streaking from behind, but it is so risky in this kind of meta where tempo and retreat can also be rewarded, and it's a lot more balanced, so these win-out comps aren't nearly as consistent if you don't get things online quickly.
Feels like a lot of our players haven't really adjusted to that tempo. This was one of the things we and EMEA were worried about for CanBiz in particular. Like you pointed out earlier, Dan, CanBiz loves playing this underground, but EMEA kind of has a lackadaisical pace in the earlier stages that let you go deeper into that. On the international stage, we've seen that is no longer the case.
I mean, we'll see. CanBiz still has 9 HP, and you never really count out the underground players. Although it looks like CanBiz has 7 Infinity and is almost completely out of that undergrounds entirely. Yeah. And we'll see whether or not that 7 Infinity means that he found that Ezreal, or perhaps he found a second emblem.
Well, he picked it off the accelerated mentorship, which is going to do great for him, given that he was tanking all those losses. Now has a way to get past those levels, even though his gold is completely gone.
You feel so much more comfortable in this position when you're getting free XP every round, when you've got some HP to back it up. You can take some losses and say, don't worry, I've got the long term. For CanBiz, there may be no long term, because everybody else remaining in the lobby is 40 HP ahead of him.
Yeah, everyone's looking really strong. Replay hit the Jin 2. 9 is able to hit some... Oshima Pen rather hit Misfortune 2. Michael hit Warwick 2. Speaking of which, who even beat Michael? You were streaking. It looked like he was so dominant. I'm really curious about that. And no, the Zephyr, because it's a guaranteed spot. You have to keep the Ezreal there.
That is brutal, and that's going to start off the fight horribly for CanBiz. Doesn't even have a Samira 2 in the backline. All of the items on this Ezreal, and Shima Pen's Misfortune finally found the damage she needed, and the cost will be CanBiz's life. Falling out, the EMEA hero in 7th place.
Hold my hand. EMEA NA.
All right.
7-8.
We got replay. We're forming an alliance here between EMEA and NA.
We're gonna do it a panda here. We're gonna start adopting people from other regions and find some reason to include.
Hold on,
them
let me find my passport and show it to Dan just to prove I'm all in.
That's right. You get to cherry pick and be the best of both worlds. 9 here hits Empowered Reserves, a good heart unit. In fact, even has 2 Syndras, by the way, at level 6. Literally impossible for him to get it, but let's say a duplicate comes out, weird things have happened. I don't know if this is the win out Lulu. It's pretty strong. I think it can still hit top 4, but I don't think this is like something that's going to likely win the lobby unless some crazy circumstances happen.
And 9 is at the bottom, but as we noted before, CanBiz and Jukyu, as you guys are talking about the tempo of the lobby, just sweeping them away. At least everybody else has got a little bit of HP to run with. You can see here from Dr. Osar things, the late game boards are starting to come online and really challenge the power that Lulu can present.
Yeah, I mean, he's going up against Michael's little bro. Dr. O here has 1-star Mordekaiser, 1-star Warwick. Really good August,
He's doing
though.
his best.
Yeah, he's trying. And he's hanging in there. But Dr. O does not look like he's a candidate for top 4 just because by the nature of he's out of gold and he's running out of time.
Yeah. Now, 9's board, of course, does have decent augments, as you said, but no Axiom Arc means the cap is going to be pretty low alongside the... shall we say, unfortunate gold total coming into this stage 5. Meanwhile, replay, top of the boards, 5 win streak, 40 gold,
which is
much better.
So good for him too, because he wants to either roll for Gen 3 or go to 9 and cap out legendaries. Those are 2 of the ways you can play it with double econ in the form of the gold, the collector, and that rule of 4. I'm inclined to say that you should be going for Gen 3, as Mortdog has suggested. Which, by the way, Replay loves Deathblade Jhin. He has 3 swords on his bench. Not sure if he can get that to work, but hey, we'll see what he ends up doing here.
Yes, it's a shame for Campbell, of course, who managed to hit that Jhin 3 yesterday, to have to pass that blessing along to somebody else. But you're right, there's a ton of money in there as you see the rule of 4. Every 4 enemies he kills drops 4 gold, and occasionally, very occasionally, a component as well. There's a lot of money in the bank.
So we can go for a triple itemization here on Viego. I'm looking at Bloodthirster, Giant Slayer, and Guardbreaker as a potential combination. Is that what he goes for?
Maybe IE?
Infinity Edge is a little bit worse on Viego.
Not ideal.
But I think I also think that Replay loves Guardbreaker. He has almost like an unreasonable infatuation with it. There was a Scream game where I think he slammed 4 of them, 2 of them on Jhin. His chat was like, are you trolling? He's like, no, I just think Guardbreaker is that good right now.
I just think it's neat.
Crit.
I just think it's neat.
I mean, when you're up against an Ox Force board, which is going to have guard, they're going to have shields for days, it's certainly going to have amazing value. See Viego newly itemized, doing a ton of work. It actually seems like the Ox Force, even with that in mind, are still strong enough to hand out the L.
And this makes sense. Like, Replay is greeting. He's not rolling his goal. He's trying to go to 9 or slow roll potentially. I don't think he's going to slow roll because he doesn't have extra Jins. I think a lot of players wonder, like, what should I do, right? Should I be rolling at 8? Should I be going to 9? Usually you can let the game decide for you. There's no reason to pre-level. Just wait to see what happens in the next couple of rounds. Trade that HP. If you have, like, that 5th or 6th Jin, really consider going for that. But otherwise, he's so far away from Jin 3, I recommend going to 9 here.
Well, I'm genuinely fascinated by seeing the health leaderboards along the side. Michael's board we've seen earlier on continues to be incredibly strong with this Mordekaiser 2. We saw him hit at stage 4, but I'm looking at Shen over there on the side, who has been the worst performing player from CN, a sort of unknown ladder warrior coming 5th in regionals, who's made this easy being green Nico comp he's been running look very strong.
Yeah, we'll see. Michael right now in the meantime. Oh, that secondary stun! Does that give Motivation the opportunity to finish? There's no Edge of Night.
Well,
and Shimapan can get a huge shotgun blast! Oh!
No!
This Yeller lives.
Yeah, Dr. O and Shimapen both dropping down pretty low. We mentioned before, our players were all sitting around 40, 50 HP, but that is starting to slip, and it's starting to slip in a direction which will leave us with a pretty definitive top 4 soon.
Yeah, Shianash all lost as well, so it looks like some of the other boards are just catching up in power. Meanwhile, Shimapen trying to make it work.
Okay.
Vayne 3. It's solid. Again, the thing about Anima Squad is that it's almost like too fair. It's almost too honest. There's the only thing that you can kind of do a crazy come from behind victory is if Misfortune somehow gets the God ult, and a lot of people are positioning very well around stuff like that.
Has a chance here to try and pull himself back from the brink. Has a decent amount of fame stacks around the 70s or so. So around 300, 350 HP across the team. So definitely not terrible, but the Misfortune needs to do a lot of work. This time she almost gets rid of the Jhin, but almost may not be good enough. The Vayne is still alive in the corner, but Shimapen, I think, surely does take the loss. And look at that goal coming into the pocket of Replay.
Never been more convinced by a Protector's Vow Vayne, I'll say that much. Was it good?
Close.
No. Did it help? Yeah, a little bit, I'll admit.
So the thing is about Shimapen is a lot of things went right for him that fight. He's still barely lost. It almost feels like, what else do I have to do here? And the answer, if Bebe was here, is just stop playing Anima Squad. But what do you do if you're in this spot and you're committed? Because Shimapen's made the best of an awkward situation, but I'm pretty sure the best spot he can play for is 5th.
Well, I mean, he's really missed on his composition, right? Because Anima Squad, when you don't have enough of a backline, the solution is go for that Riven 3. She really caps out your front line and allows you to survive against those higher damage compositions. And Shimapen just isn't there.
And news coming in, you mentioned Replay with money in the bank has gone up to level 9 to try and cement that spot at number 1. Dr. O, along with Shimapen, will be fighting for his life in this coming round. She said, Dan, the battle for 5th is well underway.
It feels so bad here to be Dr. O with such low HP. His augments are good, his items are good, his comp is good. It's a fight for 5th place, though, here between him and Shimapen. Where's this effort lands? On to the Mordekaiser.
And we've got to watch this backline. The Misfortune is going to decide this fight for Shimapen. The front line holding on for the time being. Misfortune, a slight micro stun, but she finally gets off her first ultimate right into the laser core. Takes out half the board right away. Acel doing his best, but it's just not good enough. Dr. O takes a 6.
And Shimapen guaranteed top 5, but again, there's a huge hunk of HP to get over, especially when you've got a nightmarishly strong Replay just churning through the rest of the lobby.
Yeah, looking at Xian's board here, what can he do to guarantee 4th place? He's pretty close to there. Looks like he's queuing up against either Shimapen or 9. He's really hoping for Shimapen because I think a lot of players just want that Anima squad to be fought against. But Shimapen has to figure out the best way to maximize his placements from this spot. And I think it comes down to the fact of whether or not he can get the optimal Misfortune angle and whether or not he can land the proper Zephyr.
The front line is looking pretty good. We've got the reinforced Garen as well as we've got our little friend Jinx in the corner just trying to work her magic. But the big ult needs to land here. The front line gets torn half to pieces immediately. The first ult is coming. It's a long time coming. It needs to count.
Look at that. Mordekaiser in the front gets exploded. The one chance Michael's board had. Shimapen somehow survives one more round.
Now, here's the thing about Anima Squad, is that it's a theoretically infinite scaling trait because the more you kill, the more HP you stack up, and eventually, it just becomes a little bit difficult for people to get that burst threshold. So, every single win is so important, not just for Shimapen to stay alive to 7 HP, but also because it just makes his comp more likely to potentially get too big.
Well, I mean, the main thing Shimapen's going to be keeping an eye on is how Xian is doing. Unfortunately for Shimapen, winning that previous round, in fact, both of our bottom players still alive at this point, winning their previous round, with Michael just above them on a loss streak with a ton of money in the bank.
So Michael's trying to go to 9. He was holding things like Urgot and like Garen pair. I wonder what he's going to do at 9. It's not like you really have any other choice than to go to 9 because he can't really roll for Warwick 3, and it's not really what his comp's about right now. So Michael has to really hope that going to 9 makes a difference. How many times does this happen where you start off really good streaking, you go to 9, you play a unit, but you just keep losing anyways, and then all of a sudden the spot that's a high roll goes into a 4th? I feel like that's a certain possibility here for Michael.
He can afford one more loss, but he really, like you're saying, should not go for it because then he has nothing to play with in the later stages of the game, should he be able to get to that 1v1. So he's just looking for anything he can find to cap it out. A second Mordekaiser perhaps on the cards. We've seen it earlier.
Yeah, it worked pretty well. We've got shots on upgraded. If we want to throw in the Samira as well, the options are here at level 9. There's a couple of items on the bench as well. So Michael has some big decisions to make. Shimapen as well, looking to hold on for a few moments more.
Now Shimapen, the hero of the Anima squad, Japan's hope here in the game. Zephyr into the backline, onto that Vayne, but it doesn't matter. Here comes the first ultimate from Misfortune. Stuck a little bit on that Rammus. She gets CC'd. One more ult to go, but Rammus just too tanky to deal with. Re-replays level 9. Riftwalker Jhin will take out Shimapen in 5th place.
Even with the Edge of Night, it still wasn't good enough. Shimapen outlasts Dr. O, but for the Japanese fans, that's got to be a disappointment.
Michael lost again, and I think that amazing high roll into 4th place might be coming true, and I have to wonder what happened between that incredible 4-2, like what looked like to be like 80 HP streaking forever into potential 4th place. That's got to be on Michael's mind, but for now, we got to focus on salvaging this spot. If you can find a 2-star legendary, that 2-star Ezreal, for example, might be the key if he's transitioning out of the laser core. Looks like Michael is slowly but surely pivoting out of laser core at the moment.
Wow. Well, we know that laser core has not been the comp to really get you across the line in 1st place, and we are at the point in the competition where every point could be the difference between seeing tomorrow and being sent home with a huge heap of disappointment.
Here we go. Shen in trouble here, potentially. The Zephyr is massive onto that backline, preventing that Janna from popping off. Xian doing the best, but his backline just not putting out enough damage. This Jhin completely uncontested as he fires away. Viego doing his damnedest, but Jhin still survives. Janna will finally fall, and Xian takes a massive hit.
Michael's dead in 4th!
No!
Oh my god, and that's got to be a game. That's a 4th place where a lot of people would be like, yeah, I top 4 in the World Championship, but a player like Michael will probably have to be at least reevaluating. If not, that's something that's difficult to cover from mentally.
I mean, that Mordekaiser 2 coming in that early on, absolutely, I would have expected it to be more, but I mean, Replay really setting the tone for this lobby. This is just, money beyond compare. Scrooge McDuck levels of piles of gold for Replay to dive into and put together the board of the gods.
Shen here looking for one more fight. China really having this representative been underrepresented so far. 27 points, his chance to recover his world championship dreams. So we swap over to the other side of the fight. We see Replay going up against 9, whose board really struggling, bouncing back and forth. We're getting a little
You see the Leona just tanking the Lulu wall, just passing through it anyways? What a Giga Chad.
She's doing her best.
That tells you you've reached a point in the game where Lulu's no longer absolutely murderous. Xian will survive, 9 will take the loss as well. Replay still up on 49 HP. I don't even dare to think how much money has passed through his coffers.
It's Replay's game to lose. At this point, it's a fight for second place. 9 looking for anything that could potentially help that. And then Xian, if he's able to fight against like 9 and get that win head-to-head, might be able to squeeze into that second place, would be huge for him.
Redemption coming for Jen. Hopefully for him it'll be the difference maker here. But it does feel like for this Oxlinger's board, this exists in our regular reality as a the strength of the board. For the other two, we've just got the whole different galaxies they're in.
It's genuinely shocking how well this board has done in the lobby he's found himself in. Michael's incredible board early, all of that.
Yeah, I think that Xian's board is really strong because of the Janna too. I think people sleep on this Karen, this carry, as Janna is very strong even without Category 5. And with that easy being given a bunch of APs on the correct side, maybe that Twister hits that Lulu, and we can see a replication of that Ghost fight.
It's the lovely Shroud right onto Lulu, and the knockup to follow up. Lulu gets deleted in the opening moments of the fight. 9 in real big trouble. This could be such a huge round for Jan. So much has to happen to hit the top 2. Replay fighting off screen. The Janna going very low. Nico healing herself up. Another tornado sends most of 9's board into the air. And it's looking like without the Lulu, there just isn't enough DPS left on the board. They're down to the final unit.
I don't know. That Malphite is looking terrifying, taking out the 2 backline carries of Xian's board. There goes Syndra. The true carries of Malphite and Syndra take it home for 9.
Rock solid.
Power of supers in a nutshell. The difference between playing something like Vertical Hearts and supers is that supers turns all of these other units into potential threats, not to mention he has empowered reserves. So that Malphite actually was doing a lot whenever he was doing his slam. He was actually chunking for like 25-30% of those carries HP. So in some ways, it was a positioning advantage for Xian, but unfortunately, the side that had a little bit more tanky units was not able to intercept that Malphite.
So the question remains, can anything deal with the massive bank bans of Replay? He can have every unit he wants though. Look at that bench. There's so much coming in to make this board surely insurmountable.
Massive Zephyr into the backlines onto that Lulu will slow down the DPS of 9. That Leona once more firing away, eliminating that front line. And you can see the Jhin completely uncontested. The Lulu, it's just a competition of who gets their damage out faster. But Jhin seems to be winning the race. And Lulu, one more ultimate. Jhin doing his best to take her down. The healing doing so much from the Gunblade.
No.
One more, but Jhin takes her out. And there goes the board of 9 Replay.
But 9 is still alive. The Lulu positioning was so good. Avoiding getting that early hit means that there's still one more chance. But Replay says, you know what? I've always got more to give.
Yeah, he's going for not just Jhin 3, but also Viego 3, and he also has legendaries to throw in. So this is a really difficult spot to come back from for 9. Also, it's kind of interesting, right? The Zephyr on the Lulu was like devastating for the early burst and ramping up the hearts, but it's also like it kept her safe from some of the Jhin shots. So it's one of those weird things where it's hard to evaluate from if you're in 9th spot. And the more important thing is, can we even beat Replay 2 or 3 times in stage 7? I'm not entirely sure.
It's worth reiterating, Replay is one of the top 3 players in the tournament right now. Coming in first in this game as it seems to be inevitable, just further cements his spot as one of the favorites coming into day 3.
Replay desperately re-rolling for that capped out board, but there is no eventual cap. You can go for the Jhin 3, the Viego 3. Like you said, Dan, there's a million options on the board.
Yeah, actually rolling like pretty aggressively. I think he wants to finish this game before he has to get to it. A lot of people don't want to roll to 0. He's waiting to pop this anvil in case it's like a shroud or anything in the last second.
There goes the tank items onto the Fiddlesticks. The Anvil still remains unpopped. That's Zephyr into the backline on the Lulu once more, and Jin starting to fire away, but Lulu chewing through this front line rapidly. The Pike Stun will miss. Look at that Lulu uncontested, like you said. The Pantheon down onto the Jin, completely stunned up. The Lulu survives, Jin does not, and it looks like Replay will not be taking home a victory just yet.
We didn't think it was possible, but Replay will have to dig deep. Fortunately, again, he's got the money to do so, but Nine, representing Latin America, just holding on like an absolute hero against one of our top 3 players.
I mean, maybe Nine's going to make me eat my words. I said I don't think Lulu wins this lobby. He's already top 2, which is outperforming what I expected. Going to potentially go for top 1. Replay is getting a little bit too much. Oh,
there it is.
Okay. Is that going to be enough? Is that the end of it?
Oh, it should definitely help.
Of course, that Viego is going to have so much burst damage onto the fragile Lulu. It's all about the positioning.
One more time around. Nine has pulled off a miracle before. That bench is full up. The Zephyrs are pitch perfect. Nine's hopes may have died in the opening moments of the round.
Lulu already so low, survives with the second win. Gunblade will not save her. Viego takes her down. 1, 2, 3 strikes, and Nine is out of here. Replay takes yet another first place.
North America continues